What's up, guys? So I finally finished reading Sword of Destiny. So many stories on here were just so sad. Like, they were so heartfelt. They were like, it's so different from this book. If it almost feels like these two books, since they're short stories, they're going into different aspects of Geralt's life so that you get a good idea of who he is. Because I think in this one, you see him more as the Witcher, I think. I mean, in this one you do too, in Sword of Destiny. But I think you see him more as more than just a mutant in Sword of Destiny. Like, he's not just a mutant. He has, contrary to what he feels, to what he thinks, he does have feelings, he does have emotions, etc. In this video, as you could see with the title, I want to talk a little bit about Geralt. I was going to write notes and stuff, but I was like, you know what? I don't want to make this feel like an information video about Geralt, similar to like my Mass Effect talks or something. Because I don't know everything about Geralt because I haven't finished reading all the books. But since I finished reading the two short stories, I really want to talk about how they express Geralt because that's what they're about. It really makes you think a lot about who he is and about the games as well, because some things, I mean, they're not, the games and books aren't absolutely the same when it comes to the way that Geralt is represented. There's a few things that I've been noticing that I think are a bit different, but they're not huge. They don't really make a big difference, and I could see why CD Projekt Red decided to change some things, because some things work in the book world, and those same things don't always work in, say, movies or games, so they have to change things. With this video, I think what I want to do is, for those of you that haven't played the games or haven't read the books, I want you guys to get a good idea of who Geralt is. Because I've heard a lot of people actually say, I don't like Geralt. I can't connect with him. And it's usually people that haven't read the books. It's just people that have played Witcher 2 or something. And I think it's that lacking of the character development from the books. Because as much as I really like how Geralt is represented in the games, it's never going to come close to the books. I think that's probably the major thing that separates book readers and non-book readers, because some people are like, do I have to read the books to play the games? You don't, because CD Projekt Red does a really good job about recapping with those like comic booky cartoon recaps that they do in the games. So they do a really good job about recapping the important stuff, and also they don't really incorporate a lot of meaty stuff, because the games really stand out for themselves. They're not extremely tied to the books, meaning that you can't separate them. The games do stand on their own as a different medium, using characters from the book. So I think that's what non-book readers really miss out on, is that connection that people get when reading it. It's that past knowledge, more of a nostalgic type of feeling. It's not really like you're missing out. It's just an added emotion, really. I think it is worth reading the books before you play the game, but it's not necessary. So I could understand when some people are like, I don't like Geralt, that haven't read the books, because you just can't get everything that Geralt is from the games. You just can't. It's limited, because he's already a pre-existing character. He's not a customized character. You don't create him. He is a pre-existing character. He already has past baggage. He already has a personality. He already reacts this specific ways for a specific reason. He has already past relationships. The people that you meet in the game, he's already been in a relationship with them, like, say, Yennefer. So you're lacking that character development. And Geralt is just so complex. He's such a complex character, which is exactly why I think some people just don't see that, and probably think that he's he's not very interesting because they don't know what baggage Geralt is has. I think the most interesting thing to me, that you see it in the games as well, is that struggle that he has of not caring, that he does not want to care. His Witcher code pretty much tells him he shouldn't care. He shouldn't have emotions. He shouldn't be afraid. He shouldn't fall in love. The only thing he is made for is killing monsters. And if he feels scared, how is he going to kill those monsters? You know, him becoming a mutant never did really anything to his emotions. His emotions are still there. And I think because a lot of people treat him as an outsider, treat him as a freak, treat him as a mutant, I think he feels different, obviously, because he is different, but he's not that different as he thinks he is. Since Geralt is the main character, obviously, it goes into his feelings. But when it comes to the other Witchers, in the School of the Wolf, there's Vesemir, who is the oldest Witcher. He pretty much, he's probably a few centuries old, and he pretty much raised Geralt, so he's like almost Geralt's father. So there's Vesemir, there's Geralt, there's Lambert, there's Eskel, and there's, I don't know how to pronounce his name, but it's Cohen. That's how I think his name is pronounced, probably saying it completely wrong. But there's just a few Witchers in the Wolf School, and those are his brothers and his family, pretty much. And they all unite in Kaer Morhen. But out of all the Witchers that you see them a lot in this book, which is what I like. Reading about the training that Witchers go through, and you see all of them there with Geralt. It's really interesting because you notice how different Geralt is. I think for the other Witchers, it's easier. At least that's how the books make it sound. It's almost easier for them to not meddle, to not get in issues, politics, to not fight for somebody when there's no monster involved. I think it's easier for them to do that than Geralt. Because Geralt, so many times he's said, I'm not going to choose sides, I'm neutral, and this and that. And so many people have questioned him for it. And in Blood of Elves, there's a scene that's very emotional, it's very strong between Geralt and Triss, talking about a battle that Triss was at. She was supposed to be dead, and it was the battle of the hill, and there's the 14 sorcerers and sorceresses that died, and Triss is supposed to be one of those. That moment where Triss is fighting with the Witcher, is arguing about choosing sides, about staying neutral when so many people need help, when you are the only person that could help somebody. How are you going to say no because I'm a Witcher and I only kill monsters? I don't, she's like, some people are worse than monsters. And I think that's a big, huge topic of the books, is man versus monster and man versus man. Like, who is the real monster? Sometimes the monsters, they're not that monstrous. And many times the humans are the ones that do monstrous things. That's why I love that trailer, the cinematic trailer, that they released, CD Projekt Red released yesterday, because that trailer, for so many reasons, does such a great job of representing what the books are about, of representing who Geralt is. And I think CD Projekt Red did that on purpose, so that people going into the games already have a good understanding of that ambience, of that feeling of who the Witcher is and what he does. And also the monsters, because you almost feel bad for this. I think I'm not sure if it's a Bruxa, it's a type of vampire. I'm not sure. Or if it's a Alp. think they're called. It's a type of vampire. I thought it was a Bruxa, when I saw it, but I'm not sure if that's what it is. These monsters may do monstrous things, but to them, it's a way of survival. That's their only way of surviving. That's the only way they know how to survive. And Geralt's Witcher code tells him that he can't. Geralt isn't just a mindless monster killer. He will kill. He has a code, and his code. A lot of times he doesn't go by his code, even though he says that he it's a code. A lot of times, given the situation, he will break that code, and it makes him really mad because it shows him, it proves to him that he does care, even though he tries to tell himself that he doesn't, even though he tries to tell himself that those mutations, those trial of grasses, pretty much eliminated his emotions. He is wrong. They did not. The mutations never touched his emotions. He was trained to keep his emotions on check, but he is still afraid. That's what I love about Sword of Destiny, is that you see that Geralt is afraid of death. He gets scared. He gets nervous around women. He actually meets his mother in this book. It was the last story, Something More, is exactly that. Something more. It's just there's so much of Geralt in that story, so much emotion, so much of Geralt's humanity. It makes you see that Geralt is something more, even though that something more is actually Ciri. You also see it as Geralt is something more than just a mutant. He's something more than just this murderer, this killer of monsters. And in that trailer, what I love the most is that song. If you listen to that song, it gives you chills because it's pretty much a song that monsters sing to their kids. It's a lullaby about The Witcher. And it's the other way around. It's like those lullabies, those songs that people sing about the what goes bump in the night, about monsters, about the boogeyman. It's about warning children about these evils. It's that kind of song.
Wolves asleep amidst the trees, bats all a swaying in the breeze. But one soul lies anxious, wide awake, fearing all manner of ghouls, hags, and wraiths. It's all silent for the night. Cows turned in as daylight dies. But when soul lies anxious, wide awake, for the Witcher, brave and bold, paid in coin of gold, he'll chop and slice, you cut and dice, you eat, you uphold, eat you whole.
And not just the monsters, a lot of people see Geralt as a monster, as a freak, as something to be afraid of that constantly affects him. He wants to pretend like he doesn't care, but he does. He does care. It does affect him. It makes him mad. It makes him so mad that people have seen him on the ground bleeding from a monster fight. and they have just abandoned him. So when he does receive help from someone, it's weird to him, where he's like, why are you helping me? You know, what do you want? And in that something more, there's this merchant that actually helps Geralt, saves his life. Geralt tells the merchant, he says, surely you have heard of what people say about witchers, that they don't know which is worse, them or the monsters that they kill. He also talks about sorcerers, because sorcerers also have a bad reputation. They're also seen as outcasts. The merchant says, it's not true, sir. I don't understand why you say so. You think that I can't see with my own eyes? You are cut from the same cloth as that healer. It was the healer that, her name is Vicenna, a healer that, a sorceress that healed Geralt. She has red hair, and I thought it was Triss at first. I was like, oh, finally Triss, because Triss actually isn't introduced until Blood of Elves. I thought she was going to be introduced in here. She is mentioned in Last Wish, but she's not like actually in it until Blood of Elves. So I thought this was going to be Triss, but it's not. It was actually Geralt's mother, and it was like, it was a big moment. It was a really, really big moment. So the merchant tells him, it's like you were cut from the same cloth as that healer. And he says, she didn't tell us her name. She came to us and offered her services without hesitation, knowing that we needed her help. She caught up with us in the evening, barely descended from her saddle when she hurried to take a look at you. Oh, sir, she struggled with treating your leg. The air crackled with magic, and we were so terrified that we fled into the forest, and then blood came out from her nose. Magic is not easy, you see. Oh, she dressed your wound with such care, like... And then Geralt says, like a mother. Effectively, that's right. And as you fell asleep, white as a sheet, she was barely on her feet, but she came to ask us if the rest of us needed her help. We owe sorcerers too much, even though we don't know who they really are. And then he talks about the hill, the battle on the hill, of everything that those sorcerers and sorceresses did to fight against Nilfgaard, to protect the people, because now this is where Nilfgaard is really just... Dandelion says it. He's like, this isn't even a war. That he's like, they're just annihilating everyone. And it starts to really eat at him that he wasn't there, because for a second, he thinks Yennefer was there. He thinks Yennefer was one of the 14 that died on that hill, and it scares him. You could tell that it scares him so much to think that Yennefer died on that hill. And the merchant starts to recite the names. He's like, everyone knows the names on that tombstone. And he starts to say the names, and he says Triss Merigold, and he says like 4 more, and then Geralt stops him, because he knows who Triss is. Even though she hasn't come out, he knows who Triss is. So it really affects him. You find out here that when he found out that Triss was on that tombstone, it scared him. Like, it was like, oh my god, she died? But he always thought that 14th on that tombstone was Yennefer. And there's this was one of my favorite parts of this whole book, is this part. I have to read it to you guys. Geralt goes to the hill to look for himself, to read the names, and he's reading, and he's remembering who these people were, because he knew a lot of them. He's reading, and then all of a sudden someone starts coming behind him. Someone starts walking behind him, and he turns around and he sees a young woman. I don't know how old, but a young woman in a dress, like blonde hair, fair, and she's holding flowers. She comes and she puts the flowers down, and he's just looking at her. He felt a chill. She passed by him without a word and knelt. He tells the girl, he says, you brought flowers, and she smiles. And she says, I don't bring flowers, she said, lifting her head, but the ones that lie here are for me. He looked at her. She knelt in a way such that her body obscured the view of the last name engraved on the stone. The girl was bright, unnaturally bright, against the dark background of the rock. Who are you? He asked slowly. Don't you know? And then Geralt, inside his mind, he says, I know. He thought, looking at the icy blue of her eyes. Yes, I think I know. And she said, and then Geralt felt calm. He could not be otherwise, not now. I have always been curious about how you look, madam. You don't have to give me such title, she replied coldly. We have known each other for years, haven't we? We know each other, he agreed. They say that you follow in my steps. Throughout the whole book, or throughout a lot of this story, they talk about how death follows in his steps, and he never turns around. He never looks back. They say that you follow in my steps. I do, but you had never looked back until today. Today you turned around for the first time. And then Geralt remained silent, tired. He had nothing to say. How will this happen? He asked her at last, coldly and without emotion. I will take you by the hand, she replied, looking him straight in the eye. I will take you by the hand and lead you across the meadow through a cold and wet fog. And after, what is there beyond the fog? Nothing, she replied, smiling. After that, there is nothing. You have followed me step by step, he said, cutting down those who crossed paths with me. Why? So that I would be alone? Isn't that right? So that I would finally begin to fear. I'll tell you the truth. I have always been afraid of you. I didn't turn back for fear of seeing you behind me. I was always afraid. I have lived my life in fear until today. Until today? Yes, until today. We stand face to face, but I don't feel any anxiety in taking everything from me. You have also stripped me of fear. Why are your eyes filled with terror, Geralt of Rivia? Your hands shake. You are pale. Why? Are you afraid to read the 14th name engraved on the obelisk? If you like, I can read you the name. No, you don't need to. I know whose name it is. The circle is complete. The serpent skins its teeth in its own tail. So be it. You and your name, and flowers for her and for you. The 14th name engraved at that base. The name that I uttered in the middle of the night, in the sunshine, in the frost, in the heat, and in the rain. No, I'm not afraid to say it now. Say it then. Yennefer. Let's end this, he managed to say. Take my hand. And she says, not today. So it was an amazing thing to read because it's like, Geralt is afraid of dying. He was afraid of dying the whole time. Everything, he always claimed that he wasn't afraid, that he couldn't be afraid. Because if he was afraid, how was he going to fight these monsters? He always said, I know I'm going to die, but whatever. But now you know that he's always been afraid. That's why he would never turn around. And when he finds out that 14th name is most likely Yennefer's, it destroys him. He's like, that's it. I have nothing left. He doesn't care anymore. Now he really doesn't care, which is why he says, I'm not afraid anymore. And he says, just take my hand, just end it. Like, I'm done. But it turns out that it's not Yennefer. She's not the 14th. She did not die on that hill. And it's a kind of like an awakening for Geralt. Throughout the whole book, that's why it's called the Sword of Destiny. Sword of Destiny has two edges. It's got 2 points, and one of them is him. But his destiny, if you remember when I talked about this book, when I talked about Ciri in Question of Price, his destiny is Ciri. He told Dunny to give him what he already had but didn't expect, which was Ciri. It's been 6 years, so Geralt goes back to find his destiny, and Queen Calantha tells him that Pavita, her daughter, and Dunny died out at sea, and that they didn't have the child with them, that it was so weird. That Pavita never separated herself from her baby. But never did Calantha tell him that the baby was a girl. She even tried to test him, to test destiny. She's like, there's 10 kids out there playing. But all of them were boys except for one, Ciri, the girl. And Geralt never thought that Pavita hadn't had a boy. Because even Calantha was even saying because she was giving like scenarios, and she kept saying he. So Geralt immediately thought it was a boy, and he was like, when she tells him to choose, he's like, I'm not gonna play your games, but she's like, choose, and he's like, Pavita's son is not there, and none of these boys are fit to be a witcher, and she's like, how did you know that Pavita's son's not there? And he says, I didn't, I just guessed. But as time goes by, you realize that because Ciri is tied to Geralt through destiny, she is destined for him. She is his destiny. That was not just a guess. That was not just a coincidence. He knew, something inside him told him that that child was not a boy. So that's why he's like, that her son's not there. So he doesn't believe in destiny. He even tells Callantha, you know what? Screw this. I don't want the child. I can't have that type of burden. Just, I go back on my word. Keep the child. That's all you had to do, is just tell me that you don't want me to take the baby or the kid, and I'm done. And Callantha's like, aren't you afraid of going back on destiny? You know, what if, she's like, what if something bad happens to you? He's like, well, it's going to happen to me because it's tied to me. I'm the one that refused it, so whatever. He's like, I don't want to be a part of this. He's like, just stay with the kid. That's it. So he leaves. And he doesn't take Ciri. He doesn't even know that it was a girl. The second time was in the Sword of Destiny, which was, the meeting was just absolutely adorable. I think I'll make another video where I talk about that part. But it's just so cute because Ciri, I think, is like no more than 10 years old, it says. And he doesn't know who this is. He finds her in the forest of Balaton or something like that. I forgot what it's called. This forest where the dryads are there. This forest is the dryads' forest. It's not. They kill humans. They kill humans that try to cross it, that even pass by it. They murder them. Like, they just absolutely massacre them. They're these forest creatures. Geralt goes to talk to one of to the main dryad. They know him as Gwynblade, and I think that name Gwynblade was in The Witcher. It's what the elves call him, Gwynblade, as well, which means White Wolf. So I think they said that name in The Witcher 2, if I remember correctly. So he finds her. He finds Ciri in the forest by herself, and she's running around, and he's like, what the hell are you doing here? He sees this little girl, and she's like, I'm a princess. It's so cute. Oh my god, it's the cutest thing. The discussion, the talk that Ciri and Geralt have is just, oh my god, I gushed the whole time. I'm like, this is so cute. It's so funny too. So it's pretty big, that part. So I want to do it in a different video. I think I'll probably just do it. I'll probably just read that part or something. But it really connects them. Even though Geralt keeps calling her a brat and like this, and he just messes around with her and makes fun of her, and because she's a princess and she's out in the forest and stuff, and he's like, I'm gonna spank you if you don't stop or whatever. And she's like, you can't spank me. I'm a princess. I'll have your head. It's awesome. It's an amazing story. It's so good. It's so well written. Even the fan translation they did such a good job at that. It really captures the relationship between Geralt and Ciri, especially at the end of Something More. You see that something more. Geralt tells Ciri, you're that something more. Geralt finally starts to believe in destiny towards the end because of so many things. Because after he met Ciri for the second time, Ciri had been told by her nanny that she was destined for a witcher, that a witcher had come with white hair, and that she was destined for that witcher. And she knew this. So when she found out that Geralt was a witcher, she was like, this is the guy. She's like, this is my destiny. And she wants to go with Geralt. she tells him, I'm your destiny. I am destined for you. And Geralt's like, no. He's afraid. Again, he's afraid. He doesn't want to. Not only is he afraid of taking care of a little girl, but he's also afraid of her exposing her to his life, because she's a princess. He's like, princesses don't become witchers. So he doesn't want to expose her to that life. He's afraid of that. He wants her to live a better life. So he, again, at the end of Sword of Destiny, he abandons her again. He leaves, and it's really sad because he leaves when she's asleep, and she wakes up and she runs to see him riding away on his horse, and she's just screaming. She's like, Geralt! And she's like, I'm your destiny! And she's like crying and stuff, and Geralt's just riding away. It's sad, but you could tell that it's affecting Geralt. It's like he's being tested over and over. When he was hurt, he took hallucinogens so that he could dream, so that he could see Yennefer, because him and Yennefer separated, and he doesn't even know where she is. He doesn't really want to look for her. She doesn't want him to look for her, because their relationship is just not good. And I think in this book, even though again it's not clear what Geralt's wish was, what Geralt's last wish was when it came to Yennefer, it was clear that it had something to do with her. I thought it was maybe, I want to be with Yennefer, or I want Yennefer to be mine, or something like that. But now you start to realize that whatever Geralt wished, it tied Yennefer's destiny and Geralt's destiny. Their destinies are now tied together. And even Yennefer knows almost everything about Geralt, because he says, how did you know? In this dream that he was having, this memory that he was having, he tells her, how did you know something about himself? They were talking, and she says, don't you remember? Don't you know? She's like, I know everything about you, because their destinies are linked, because of that last wish. And he keeps saying, it's not just destiny, there's something more. The destiny that is tied between him and Yennefer is not enough, because they're rocky the whole time. They're not happy with each other, and they're not happy without each other. Geralt needs to be with Yennefer, but he knows that he can't. They can never. They don't work. It just doesn't work. Something about it just doesn't work. And so many times Yennefer has told Geralt, just say it. You know, she wants to hear him say that he loves her, but he keeps saying that he can't. That he does. That it's almost like he's incapable of it. That he's incapable of saying I love you, because he thinks he doesn't know how to love. That he can't love because he's a witcher. Even when everything points to the contrary, it's obvious that he loves her. It's obvious that Geralt knows how to love. It's obvious that he suffers, that it hurts when he's not with her, that he misses her so much that it hurts, that every time he sees another girl, that he's with another girl, he keeps thinking she's not Yennefer. He's in love with her, and he doesn't want to say it. He doesn't want to admit it, because he keeps telling himself that he doesn't have those feelings. He's a mutant. He doesn't feel. So it's this internal struggle with him constantly, with everything, with destiny, with Ciri, with Yennefer, with everything. Even though everything is pointing to the contrary, that he does care. He does care about Dandelion, because Dandelion is his best friend. He loves Yennefer. He cares about Triss. He loves Ciri. And at the end of this book, I think, is when he finally comes to terms with his destiny. That's why he says to Ciri, you're something more. You're that something more that will tie his destiny with Yennefer, most likely. Yennefer is sterile. Geralt is sterile. Sorceresses become sterile. So Yennefer can't have a baby, and this eats at her so much. She wants a baby so bad, and it just kills her to know that she can't. And she's constantly looking for a cure for it. And it does exist, because Geralt's mother was a sorceress. She was supposed to be sterile, but she had Geralt. Since I haven't read on and I don't know exactly what happens after this, I think Ciri is that something more that is going to unite Geralt and Yennefer finally, that is going to keep them more together, because she's going to maybe represent that child that they can't have. Geralt, I think, at the end finally starts to come to terms with his destiny. He finally does this is when he takes Ciri with him, by chance, just by chance. It was so sweet. By chance, they find each other again. I think I'm gonna make a video just about Ciri and Geralt, in the Sword of Destiny, so that I could tell you guys in detail different scenes. I think I'm gonna have to do this like a two-parter on Geralt, because there's just so much that I could talk about, and I could keep talking about. I think the last thing I'm going to say in this part, in the story that I went over with Ciri, A Question of Price, I said that one of the druids there, Mousesack, I think his name was, he said that Geralt was a child surprise. That witchers do this all the time. You know, they ask for what you don't expect at home or whatever, and so that they're destined to become witchers. That wasn't the case with Geralt. Geralt here says, he's like, you know, Mousesack thought that was the case with me. He's like, but I was not a child surprise. He was like, I was an orphan. And he was like, I was a child of a sorceress, and I never knew my father. It always ate at him that he knew that his mother gave him up willingly to the school of the wolf, to Vesemir. And when he's talking with his mother, he's like, she calls him Geralt of Rivia or something like that. She says Geralt of Rivia, or he says Geralt of Rivia. He's like, that name was given to me by Vesemir. He's like, it doesn't mean anything. He's like, Vesemir gave me the name Geralt and of Rivia. He's like, I'm not even from Rivia. He's like, I was supposed to make up I was supposed to make up an accent so that I could sound like I'm Rivian, so that I could sound like I'm from Rivia, so that I could feel like I belong somewhere. She's like, just between you and me, Vesemir did not give you that name. She's like, she's pretty much saying that she gave him the name Geralt. His mother named him Geralt, not Vesemir. So you don't find out, at least not now, why she gave him up. This eats at Geralt. It kind of like, it upsets him to think of that. It upsets him to just wondering why. You know, he could have died in the Trial of Grasses. It was really hard on him, which is why he lost his pigment, his hair pigment. Not all witchers lose their hair pigment. It was really hard on Geralt, though. That's why he lost his hair pigment. So yeah, it would eat at him. But when he met her, and this was by destiny, because that's why he starts to believe more in destiny, because it was just by chance that he met her. And he knew it was her immediately. And his hands were trembling. His hands tremble a lot in this book. And I think it's saying a lot about Geralt, that he's afraid. He gets nervous. He gets scared so much that his hands tremble. He was trembling in front of Calantha when she's talking about the child surprise, when she's talking about his destiny. He's trembling, and he even he crosses his arms so that she doesn't notice that he's afraid, that he's nervous. And it's just so crazy to read that, because you're like, this is Geralt. And again, I go back to why the games lack so much when it comes to Geralt, because you would never guess that in the games when you see Geralt, that he's afraid, that he trembles when he's nervous. And as much as CD Projekt Red does want to express a lot of who Geralt is in the game, it's impossible. It's impossible to get all of this emotion, specifically in this book alone, all of this emotion, and just put it in the game. You just can't. You just can't. And I think they're going to do it through dialogues, maybe. But I think this game, The Witcher 3, is going to be more about Geralt's emotions, because now you're throwing in Yennefer. Now you're throwing in Ciri. So we're going to see that side, that human side to Geralt, I think, in The Witcher 3. Because in The Witcher 2, it was like, oh, I don't remember. He had the amnesia, so you didn't really You saw him more as a witcher, as this monster hunter. And now we have more, when it comes to the gameplay, we have more options of going monster hunting. When it comes to the story, I think it's going to be more about who Geralt really is, his emotions, his relationship between the relationship between him and Yennefer, between Ciri, how strong those are. And we're going to see a completely different side to Geralt, or at least the people that haven't read the books are going to, I think, see this Geralt. They're going to see a new Geralt. I hope. I really hope, because it is an advantage that book readers have, because Geralt is, like I said, he's an amazing character because he is a mutant, but he's not as different as he thinks. So I had no idea where this talk was going to start turning into. So that's why I was just like, you know what, I'm just going to talk about Geralt, especially right now that I just finished the book. So that's a little bit about Geralt. I will be doing another one of these about Geralt, probably more organized, telling you guys more things about him as a Witcher. So I'm going to try to focus on doing the videos about this and not moving on to Blood of Elves. Like I said, I'm not going to do this before the game. The next video that I'm going to do, I think I want to do it on Dandelion. So the part 2 of Geralt will probably come after the Dandelion one. We'll see. There's a lot of them that I have to do. I want to do one where I talk about moments with Ciri and Geralt, moments with Yennefer and Geralt, and Dandelion, and then another Geralt video where I like a part 2 to this video. But next, I think I want to talk about Dandelion, just because he's Dandelion. He's just so great. He's like one of my favorite characters. Sometimes I don't feel like slapping him, but he's so funny. I'm going to eventually decide, but let me know in the comments down below. Would you want to hear more about Geralt, or do you want to know about Dandelion? Thank you so much for watching, and I'll talk to you guys later.